I've got a big update for you guys about David today. We're still waiting for the big next court date, which I think is scheduled for the 26th of this month. But there's been a few new behind the scenes updates that I'm quite interested to update you guys on. Particularly, we've got some interesting denials coming from Celeste's family. Some of the rumors about David paying them off might have turned out to be cap. After all, we've apparently got pictures of the actual chainsaw that was delivered to David's house. We've got a bunch of new theories about what David might have actually been doing in this week in between actually committing the murder, allegedly, and then the dismemberment that happened, allegedly. And there's been pictures. People have gone to Celeste's gravesite. They've been going to the mural in Lake Elsinore. And so I just want to give you guys just updates of everything related to this case that has come out over the last 24 hours or so. And there are some really interesting things. So the first thing that I'm honestly quite relieved to hear this. They're now finally getting some information from Celeste's family. And Celeste's father is actually denying ever meeting David. And he's also denying getting money from him. So everybody that said the family, you all love pointing the finger at the family of an innocent murdered child. And I think it is very, very dark. But everybody's got to shut up now, because Celeste's own father has said there's no money to change hands. David did not pay us off. That's nonsense, okay? And this is a grieving father. I think we need to have some sympathy. So Celeste's father said that he's never even met David, much less received any money from him, despite the rumors floating around the family's hometown that the singer was giving funds to the Rivas family. There's been online speculation, including on Reddit and Facebook, springing up around Lake Elsinore, California, about 2 hours southeast of LA, that the disgraced singer and murder suspect gave money to the family. Jesus Rivas tells TMZ through his attorney Patrick Steinfeld, "I never had any contact with this guy and we haven't ever received any money from him or anyone in his family." So as TMZ reported, the family of Celeste was so devastated and exhausted after David's first court appearance, they decided not to talk to the public or the media, and now they're dealing with gossip about supposedly being paid off. But that apparently is not true, okay? Yes, it does appear to be true that David paid $1,000 to one of Celeste's classmates. We originally thought he might have been paying for her silence, but now it's come out that Celeste's family had actually done their best to keep Celeste away from David, and that they had taken away her phone so she couldn't communicate with him. And he literally, the creepy groomer that he is, stalked her all the way to her school, found the classmates, and paid them $1,000 to give her a phone so that she could communicate with David around the back of her parents. Does that sound like a family that was paid off, that was, P-wording their daughter to this Hollywood celebrity while she was underage? No, I don't think so, okay? So TMZ reached out to David's parents for comments. The attorney told TMZ, based on the advice of counsel, they don't have any comment at this time other than they fully support their son. That's David's parents, sorry, not Celeste's parents, David's parents. They fully support their alleged PDF murderer son. That's disgusting. But yeah, so that's an update, okay? And this is the response over on the Celeste subreddit. It says, "I think it all started with Steve Fisher speculating about someone receiving payments. Steve didn't speculate on who may have received these hypothetical payments, but it was enough to start the rumor mill." So should we just revisit some of these comments? Now, I like Steve. I don't want to unfairly attack Steve, but he has said a few things through the course of this case that right now we're getting new information to suggest maybe wasn't quite as cut and dry as we once thought. Okay, so let's see this clip. Let's see what they were saying.
Accountability.
Well, I went with the charge. Could you see potential charges being pressed on the parents?
I think it's too high profile of a case, right? So they're going to say, "Oh shit, if we do that, we're going to have a certain amount of the people that are going to be like, I don't care if what they did is wrong. You got to give them some space because they're a grieving family," and they are, but they've also got to be like, "Hey, we messed up." We messed up. And listen, there is, I think there's going to be financial transactions that come out in this that if this goes to trial, they're going to show that there were people that were getting money and it's going to look really, really bad.
So, oh my God.
So he's hinting towards it. He's not outright saying that the family was paid, but he's saying people are going to be looking bad and there's financial transactions. People are saying, "This is so sad. Never saw her parents' face before, but she was her dad's twin." People are sharing their own stories of grooming. I don't want to get too much into those personal stories on this video. So David started grooming Celeste online when she was 11. It's statistically true. Most children who run away from home are running from some sort of trauma or abuse, but that's not always the case. Sometimes children are groomed and lured away from loving homes by predators. I suspect this was the case with Celeste. It's very disheartening that strangers on the internet are blaming her parents when none of us have insight into what really happened. And it's very easy to sit in judgment of other people when you don't know the whole story. Yes, it's entirely possible her parents were neglectful, didn't care about her, and were getting paid off, but her parents reported her missing multiple times. Wonder if they didn't report David because they were more scared of alienating and losing Celeste altogether by doing that. Okay? The police have already cleared the family of any wrongdoing. They reported her missing. The problem lies with police never wanting to do anything about runaways. They took away her phone so he couldn't contact her again. The problem lies with David paying her peers to give her a new phone at school in secret. The mom would sleep on the floor to protect her from him. The problem lies with the fact that parents can't be with their children 24/7, and David paid for an Uber to whisk her away quickly. Okay? It says children of happy families can and do get groomed and run away because children's brains are underdeveloped and groomers are extremely manipulative. Blaming families of victims is a form of victim blaming. People always make up stories about victims and their families of true crime, which is deeply upsetting to loved ones and leads to real harassment and threats on the family and friends, as is the case with Celeste's family being threatened and harassed in real life. Super mature post. So true. Okay. So some people are still hating on the family, all that kind of thing. I don't think there's anything to it, okay? And as you can see, we've got it here in black and white. Celeste's own father has denied the payments that are happening. Now, there's a really interesting update from TMZ, and I know a lot of people aren't feeling TMZ lately, but they've put together a brand new updated timeline of the relationship of David and Celeste, which led to the alleged murder. So it says David will head to court this month for a preliminary hearing in Celeste's murder case that will be on the 26th, I believe. It says the singer, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke, has been charged with killing the teenager, but you might be wondering when everything went down and how they even met in the first place. TMZ got everything you need to know about David and Celeste, so here's how prosecutors say the timeline breaks down. So they met in January 2022, allegedly for the first time, when she was just 11 years old. And Celeste's former teacher told TMZ that he taught her at Lakeland Village School in Lake Elsinore, California, and that they met on social media. So their relationship apparently turned adult in nature while she was only 13 years old in November. Now, the court doesn't elaborate on the accusation or say how prosecutors arrived at it, but likely they know from his text messages with her that that's what was going down. There was discussions of pregnancy, plan B. It's obvious what was going down. It's very disgusting. You can see David and Celeste together on a live stream together. This is the infamous Delete Everything live stream where she basically says, is it controversial of you R-wording kids? All right. He knew what he was doing. That was wrong, allegedly. So she would be reported missing in February of 2024. Now, what's crazy, I didn't actually know this, but the live stream happened in January 2024 before she went missing. So what on earth was she doing over there? What on earth was going on? David was having this secret rendezvous with this underage girl, and, you know, the relationship had been adult in nature for months, and then he's putting her on a live stream. This guy is tapped. It's really interesting, though, because I'd always thought, how on earth could you be popping up on a live stream with a minor who's missing? Well, this live stream actually happened before she was reported missing. So this would have raised much more alarm bells. He was already trying to delete everything before anyone even knew. So in February, that's when she's reported missing, and according to prosecutors, Celeste's family reported her missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. The DA says the Riverside County Sheriffs called David on February 17th because they found his number in Celeste's phone records. And on the phone, David told authorities he hadn't talked to Celeste since February 13 or 14 and claimed he was unaware she was missing or that she was a minor. But that night, the LA County Sheriff's Department went to David's West Hollywood rental home, where he told them he'd only met Celeste in person once the previous November, according to the brief. The court alleges that during this visit, David showed deputies a yearbook photo of Celeste he had on his phone. Now, I'd love to see the body cam from that, to be honest with you. It sounds like he was showing a yearbook photo to say, oh, I thought she would graduate, I thought she was older, as if that was the evidence. Who knows? Could have been AI. So Celeste would return home on February the 19th, 2024, a few days later. Just 2 days after the LA County deputies visited David home. And David told officers during the welfare check at home he didn't know where Celeste was during the period. I think, in my opinion, that's a lie. And he keeps on pursuing her. After the phone is taken away, he's seen in Lake Elsinore. Okay, and according to the filing, David continued to pursue her, even though he had been informed she was a minor. Celeste's parents took her phone away. He paid someone $1,000 to give a phone to her. And this photo that was taken in September of 2025 shows David near the victim's home in Lake Elsinore, interacting with a man holding a brown bag, but it's unclear if the pic was from the alleged visit in February of that year. So apparently, I don't think this picture was taken in September 2025. I actually think that I had seen date and time data related to this picture. I think I've seen this picture time-stamped as December of 2024. But anyway, who knows, all right? So there was a comment on TikTok of David messing with a 13-year-old. The Celeste will be reported missing again. And that's when this poster went around. And we saw this poster was sent to David's friend Asia, who confirmed that she was sent this missing person's poster and basically was in shock that David was dating a minor. And I don't know if she lied to herself. I don't know if she just went on with it. But that was crazy. So throughout 2024, Celeste apparently traveled with David. These suspicious trips. She goes to Las Vegas, Texas, even London. And while she's in Texas, she meets David's family. David described these trips in an interview. And apparently throughout 2024, more texts would confirm the adult relationship between them. There were explicit photos that documented their relationship. He's cooked. They would apparently break up in November of 2024. We don't know why or how they broke up. They stayed in touch. And their alleged texts suggest they were still having adult relations. They would have a fight in April. According to the brief, text showed David and Celeste had a lengthy argument. Celeste was jealous David had other women, and Celeste had threatened to disclose damaging information about the relationship with the goal of ruining his life and career. So apparently that text argument took place the day before she died. So then he lured her to his home, brought her there in an Uber, and that's when she stopped using her phone. So at 8:40, that's when David sent an Uber to collect her. She was dropped off at 10:10 p.m. And then the indictment claims that very soon after the arrival, that's when he stabbed her to death and watched while she bled out. I don't know how they know that, but it says David didn't attempt to save her life, didn't call 911. And then he started sending fake texts asking where she was, part of a premeditated plan to cover up the murder because she was already dead. And then he drove to Santa Barbara County in the night. Now, I did a full breakdown yesterday on the Santa Barbara trip. Any of the evidence that was gathered there. David's there all night and he returns home in the early mornings. He went straight to a radio interview to plug his upcoming album, and he texted Celeste 2 more times that day. Obviously, it went unanswered because she was already dead, and he ordered a shovel from Home Depot by Postmates that same day. He drops his album 2 days later, and he's just having a great time, okay? He drops Withered. He stops trying to contact her a day later. All right, doesn't make any attempt to speak to her again. He buys 2 chainsaws on May the 1st under the fake name Victoria Mendez. He buys a body bag on May the 5th, a blue inflatable pool. These items were sent to his home. He apparently dismembers the body and he goes to Santa Barbara again on May the 8th, probably to get rid of evidence. He buys a burn cage in July 7th, so he was probably going to burn the body or burn parts of the body, but he realized he probably wasn't able to use that in Hollywood. He drives to Tesla for the last time at the end of July. And they basically believe David was the last person to drive it, and he parked it 400 feet from his home where it was eventually towed. And then the tour would start on August the 5th. He started playing the shows as if nothing had happened, but just over a month later, that's when the body is found in the Tesla. It is a big disaster. I'd love to know what David was thinking when all of this came out. Okay, she was found dismembered in the trunk. They could smell her. She was covered in insects. It is just disgusting. And he kept on performing. He performed in Minnesota. The next day, hit the stage at the Fillmore, kept going with his tour. But then a week later, Celeste's body is identified. Her mother identifies the body and says that she had a boyfriend named David and basically blows his shit up. But it would take seven whole months, right? His home would be searched on September 17th. That's when they basically found blood in the garage. And they had it worked out for 7 months, right? They identified David having the same shush tattoo on his hand. David would eventually cancel his tour. He scrapped his European and UK shows. His label pumped the brakes on releasing his deluxe album. And then he pulls his bloody shirt merch. Okay, that is insane that he even was selling stuff like this with all of this going on. It is actually diabolical. Celeste's death will be ruled a homicide in December. We wouldn't find out for months, but she was stabbed to death and they actually knew that. David gets dropped by the label quietly. Okay, Caliucci and others. 21 Savage is not on there, but he also pulled his collab with David. All right. January the 7th, Celeste's passport is found in Santa Barbara. That's more evidence. And then David is finally arrested 7 months after the body is found in April the 16th. And he would be charged with murder, officially. You know, we got Celeste's cause of death after all of that. They already found it. We see David at a hearing. There's a sketch of him. It's an iconic sketch. Him requesting his haircut and new clothes. Probably heard me and Camel making fun of him and his awful hairstyle. But that's the full timeline as TMZ have broken it down, and I'm working on a sort of even bigger, more expanded timeline for a video on my main channel at the moment. And we're going to just break everything down once again with this new evidence, because it really tells a very sordid tale. When we had all these mysteries and he hadn't been arrested, there was so much benefit of the doubt that could be given to him, but that's all gone now. So I'm going to share with you a few other things, just a few reminders, a few interesting posts. A lot of people are dragging up that David's friend Asia knew about Celeste being a minor in 2024 and did nothing. We confirmed that this was a real conversation that happened, and people saying, sadly, almost everyone knew and nobody said everything. Hey, look at this. David's friend knew. She responded to a post. She found out Celeste's real age and stayed quiet. This was 2 days after. And this is literally like a day before the police are coming to David's house to tell him she's a minor. She responds, said, bro, this is my friend's girlfriend. Is there a way you can confirm she's 13? She says, what the F, you're lying. But no, that's her. I would love to know what the conversation with David was like after that. Okay. People are saying, didn't she say she confronted David about it and he just showed her IDs? And that's apparently what she said. To be fair, she seemed confused. Maybe David really lied to her and she never thought her friend was a weirdo, but she continued to hang around with them both after the fact. She was killed over a year after this. She knew without a doubt Celeste was 14. She could have spoken up. She had an entire year. All of his goon team knew and did nothing. Horrible clout chasers and Nepo kids. At this point, I'm more focused on the criminal charges against David and if there were any co-conspirators. Honestly, I don't think going after a private citizen who by all means isn't famous will bring justice here. So there's pictures apparently of the actual chainsaw allegedly. This is being released by Steve Fisher, and I think this actually might well be the chainsaw that was used in the property. So it said David ordered 2 chainsaws. This was the one that was found in his garage. I wonder if he disposed of the one that he actually used. But he ordered 2. They were both delivered to his home on or around May the 5th. The DA stated Celeste was dismembered in a blue inflatable pool. They found several blue pieces of the pool on Celeste's body. They matched it with the pool that was found in David's garage. They also found one of the chainsaws but didn't take it as evidence because SF found it in the garage along with an incinerator. My question is, why didn't the LAPD take it as evidence if they think the other one was used? Could this be the identical chainsaw that David used, or did he use 2 different chainsaws? Edit, if you look next to the chainsaw, there's a box on the floor and it's a different chainsaw. As one amazing Redditor pointed out, one chainsaw has a cord, the other is cordless. The photo shows evidence of 2 different chainsaws, but we don't know if the one in the box is the one David used and if the box is empty, and whether or not law enforcement didn't find the one used or if David got rid of it. The DA didn't mention the chainsaw used in her evidence, but that doesn't mean they don't have it. So that is an image of the chainsaw, and they're saying there's another one on the floor. Is that this box? That looks like another chainsaw box. So yeah, it is very crazy. It says they probably swabbed it for DNA, applied luminol to check for the presence of blood, and determined it wasn't used, so they just photographed it. It says, yes, but if you don't have the chainsaw that dismembered her, but you have an identical one which he purchased with the one he used, I would think the DA could still use it at trial to show the jury this is the chainsaw that looks like the one he used. They have the pool, but they don't have the murder weapon. I think this is evidence, but he brought it right after the death. So it says one chainsaw on the burn cage was still in the package and wasn't used, so there's no point taking it for evidence. They just need to photograph them. But they took the pool because it was obviously ripped from being used and contained DNA. That needs to be sent to forensic labs for further testing. My question is, did he really keep the pool? Like, why though? Make no mistake, David is definitely guilty of messing with that little girl, and I believed he killed her, but you can't be that stupid. Apparently he can. Keeping the Amazon wrappers with a fake name, buying chainsaws, shovels, and a burn cage with your cards. Like, I genuinely can't believe someone is that stupid, and it would be the point where his money is the only thing that could have saved him. So I agree, it is very stupid. You will see the second chainsaw box in the photo. It's a Makita 18-volt brushless 10 top handle chainsaw. It says that has to be the chainsaw he used to dismember her. Remember her. That's the one they didn't find, only the box. He ordered 2 different chainsaws. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Let's take a moment to appreciate absolutely how stupid David Burke turned out to be and how everything he tried to do went terribly wrong in the sense of deleting evidence. It took so long for them to charge him that I started to worry that he's some sort of mastermind and they weren't going to have enough evidence to prove he killed her. But this is all coming together wonderfully, and at this point, I don't really see him weaseling his way out. What a great dude he is to leave so many clues just hanging around in his home in a car. Thanks so much, dummy. He is a moron. All right? I genuinely can't imagine a murder where anyone's incriminated themselves more than this. How is this dude even trying to plead guilty? So some people have actually been visiting and paying their respects to Celeste. This is footage of her actual gravesite. We did actually see videos and images of her funeral taking place several months ago, but now it would appear that people have actually visited the gravesites. And, you know, it looks like it's been tended to quite well. There's fresh flowers on the grave, which is nice to see, but it is really, really sad that it's even got to this point. It says, hopefully everyone is mature and lets her rest peacefully. Her family doesn't need the grave becoming a tourist destination. It's always a concern in these situations with a parasocial society. Please, everyone, keep their distance. from the grave. Be mature and respect her family. Now, everyone's still dunking on the family. I really don't like that. There's actually still a memorial set up to Celeste in Lake Elsinore, where she comes from too. A few people have actually gone to visit that recently as well. And again, I'm happy to see that this has been so well looked after. But it's just so sad that this even exists. Someone said, I just came back from Celeste Memorial at Lake Elsinore and saw the place she grew up. People she probably knew in person, her neighbors and all. Rest in peace, sweet angel. People saying, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing the Hello Kitty stuff because she loved Hello Kitty. It's just so sad. Love how it's growing and getting bigger with people bringing and making things for her. Yeah, it's just so sad to see, but I'm the silver lining is that it is a beautiful tribute to her. So a lot of people have been asking and spreading, kind of putting forward their theories. What on earth did David do with Celeste between the time she died and when he put her in the pool? Does anyone know or have any theories? People saying, my theory is he hid her in the house somewhere, not really knowing what to do. So same here. He left 1.5 or so days after the murder for New York and doesn't come back for a week or so. He got home on April 29th or 30th. If her body had been at room temperature the whole time, the smell would have been pretty overwhelming. Then he posted decay a bunch of times from a burner account on the 30th and ordered 2 chainsaws on May the 1st. Okay. Because it's not been stated yet what the prosecution believes, but I believe that they've implied by omission of other info that he simply stored her somewhere inside the house or in the garage. I'm sure a cadaver dog would have pointed out the place or places that her body begun initial decomposition at the house. It's horrifying and sick to imagine dismembering a nearly 2-week-old decomposed body, even if it had been kept indoors in a regular air-conditioned environment. It's very messed up. I keep thinking he stored her in the bathroom and that's why he warned friends of the smell. So I think he did it in the bathtub at first and let her bleed out there. Bathtubs can never be cleaned from blood residue, and neither can drains. He must have known that. I don't think he did. It said he would have needed to haul over 120 pounds of dead weight downstairs, potentially leaving blood trails all the way to the garage. That's when I thought after keeping the shower running for a while, he could have wrapped it in a body bag, then carried it with all that adrenaline and being afraid of being caught. People are stronger physically in that moment. Someone saying, I'm curious about this time period too. Over the course of nearly 2 weeks, a body would be bloated, leaking fluids, and actively decaying without being frozen. Despite possibly having a freezer in the garage, the reports of an odor make it seem like that isn't the case. Does the bathroom where he mentioned the smell have a tub? Maybe he just had her in the garage or his car. She was certainly within the house. The amount of time that he had her remains in his possession throughout the entire process is disturbing. The smell would have been absolutely horrific. It's evil and grotesque. Says, as gross as it sounds, I think he was obsessed or attached to her and kept her very close after he killed her. Dude is sick and deranged. I think he kept her close before the pool and long after decomposition because he thought she was his. She wasn't, but I assume he has the same twisted mind and thought processes as others in history who kept the people they murdered. People saying, I think it's way simpler than that. His album launched the very next day and he had a full schedule for that whole week. He flew to New York for a week, 2 days after the alleged murder. He probably hid her somewhere in the house, and when he came back from New York, he ordered his supplies and dismembered her as soon as he got them. All right, it's crazy. So Steve Fisher, the private investigator, he's actually been doing some first-hand research on the trip to Santa Barbara. And basically he's kind of given an update on actually going over there and breaking it down. So this is Steve Fisher's actively investigating the possible crime scene and dumping site locations of the SR-154 in Santa Barbara County. So this is what his tweet said. It said, on Friday, May the 1st, I spent the day in Santa Barbara County off SR-154 in the area where Celeste's passport card was found by a Caltrans worker. I captured high-resolution drone imagery of the area, and once I finish my current search mission in the Grand Canyon, I will process the imagery through the detection analysis programs we use. The area is covered by license plate readers, and the specific area where he appears to have pulled off the SR-154 has a gate that's closed from sunset to sunrise, so his car would have likely had to stay relatively close to SR-154. There are trails that lead down to the water, so someone could dispose of a chainsaw or other evidence there. Given how small and weak David is, I do not believe a chainsaw or other heavy evidence would be far into the water. The water is clear, and I was able to see several feet into it with a drone. I have a couple thousand high-resolution images from the area to process, and I've attached a few low-resolution preview images to give an idea of terrain. So he has taken very high-quality images from above, and he's actually going to be investigating and looking for additional evidence. So shout out to Steve. And people are pointing out he roasted David, saying, given how small and weak he is. People saying, why is he investigating still? I don't get it. I understand originally the landlord of David's house hired him to get info about what had happened in the house, but I think it's safe to say the police have it covered now. Because I'm a bit confused as to why they hired him for specifically, based on what SF has been doing. I guess it's hard to find out what happened in the house itself. Not going on a goose chase all over the place like this, but perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps they hired SF to find out everything to do with the case. They're saying SF is grasping for news. Now, He did share another theory on the murder, and I'm not going to lie. Shout out to SF. I like Steve, but this was dumb. This is one of the dumbest things I've seen posted by Steve in his tenure as a David investigator. He said, I can't stop thinking about the timeline of the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez as put forward in the pre-trial brief. Could the 10:30 p.m. "Where are you?" text messages actually be real and not a staged alibi? Could Celeste have walked away after an argument upon arriving in the Uber? Maybe those texts were from David asking where she was. Were real, and after he didn't receive a response, he went looking for her and found her, and they ended up driving to Santa Barbara County where the killing actually might have taken place. Okay, he could have shut her phone off when finding her. In that scenario, her body could have remained along SR 154 for roughly 12 days until the pool, body bag, laundry bags, and chainsaws were ordered and delivered on May the 1st and May the 5th. It's also worth noting that the pool was ordered after her death, meaning it would not have contained blood from the actual killing. That's really interesting. So the DA's version of events is a very compressed timeline: arrival at 10:10 p.m., fatal stabbing, then being composed enough to send an alibi text by 10:30 p.m. That's a 20-minute window. They also claim the trip to Santa Barbara that evening was to start disposing of evidence. However, the evidence had not been purchased yet. The pool, chainsaw, shovel, and other items had not even been ordered at the time of the first Santa Barbara trip. There's also the question of storing a body at his manager Josh Marshall's rental house for 12 days while waiting for tools, with nearby neighbors and decomposition odors likely becoming noticeable within a few days, all while David was out of town and having to trust that nobody would even enter the house that wasn't even leased to him. None of this changes the central point that David is responsible, allegedly. He killed Celeste, allegedly, and that I am certain of, in his opinion. Like I said, the DA is likely correct in their theory, but they're working with all the evidence. So a lot of people thought this was really dumb. Okay, people saying Steve needs to stay quiet. He's not got all the evidence. Prosecutors do. And newsflash, he's not gonna. Now he's making himself look ridiculous. Okay, people saying he needs to stop at this point. Okay. It says 20 minutes is plenty of time for a murderer to occur. The University of Idaho murders happened in under 20 minutes, and that case had 4 victims. Says this makes him look bad. Terrible theory that doesn't make sense. I can't understand this when they found evidence and DNA in the garage. Okay, Steve needs to. A lot of people aren't feeling Steve. I think this was a bad move, to be honest with you. But there's kind of lots of different theories about different aspects of the case now picking up steam. This is the finger theory. Okay, someone's saying, I have a sick theory. Sorry, I don't know if I'm reaching here, but there's so much coming out. I don't know what to expect anymore. But David's celebrity crush is Taylor Russell, and he likes the film Bones and All. What if he ate Celeste's fingers? Perhaps the bones were buried in Santa Barbara. He did say it was his favorite movie too. I wouldn't be surprised. Someone said I commented this a few days ago and agree fully. What if they never find them? I feel like it's definitely a possibility, but we'll have to see if any more info comes out. Said every time I see a theory about David, I get annoyed because I think it's too absurd, but then I remember everything he did to her and I realize nothing is too far-fetched. I hope this theory is being considered by lawyers and the court. Sick. Death is too much of a sentence for him. It's too kind of a sentence for him. Hopefully they trick him into giving all the details for less time, but hopefully then they give him life without parole anyway. So gross. I've thought about this also. Not going to hold you. One of the animes that you watched involved one of the characters' fingers being eaten in order for that person to absorb their powers. I do not know the name of the anime or the name of the character the fingers were cut off of, but if you search on here, I'm sure somebody has mentioned the video of David having what looks like a finger attached to a bag of his and spoke on that particular anime. We'd hope that he wouldn't do something that insane, but there's no low to how low this depraved guy went with this. Justice for Celeste. May he get that he'll be dished out thricefold. The anime name is Jujutsu Kaisen, and the character is Yuji Itadori. And he has Yuji Itadori as his Reddit profile banner as well. That's just so dark. Okay, so look, these are all the updates that I've seen today. There wasn't many really big bombshells or any big pieces of information, but I wanted to keep you up to date with this, and I really wanted to make sure that I made it very clear that the statement from Celeste's family says they were not paid. All right, so let's get this into our heads. Let's stop blaming the family. Let's stop victim blaming and put our attention towards who deserves the blame. David, who allegedly committed this murder and tried to cover it up very, very sloppily. Okay, so I'll be back with some more updates for you guys. I'm going to do updates on a couple other stories related to Lil Durk and the All-Star JR Ben 10 situation. We've got some updates on that. So stay tuned for some more videos. And for now, I'm out, guys. Peace.